Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Well, hi again, everybody. This is Rob Godlewski with the Think Small podcast. And today, our guest is Chef Laura Briscoe. She's the founder and CEO of Laura's Gourmet. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting business. So why don't you tell our audience and me about, what the business is today and how you got it started and kind of the transitions that you've made throughout the life of the business.
And I thought you only had about 45 minutes or an hour. So, okay, we'll go with that. So, Laura's Gourmet is a culinary brand, and I call it that because we touch a variety of categories in the culinary arena. We have three food product lines, as well as a hard good, all designed for professional chefs as well as home cook enthusiasts. So, we'll call it that. Our story originally started in 2001 when I made a career change from tech and went to culinary school. And over the course of the next 25 years now, what that has resulted in is my first company, which was focused on private fine dining, culinary
Hmm.
instruction, and local media. And during the early years of that, I created a recipe for granola that was specifically for my own enjoyment and harkened back to what I enjoyed when I was in college, which after a few different iterations that I kept updating on my well-kept notes because of my culinary training, I created a recipe that people really enjoyed. And it got to a point where I was encouraged to think about putting it into retail. So I did do that with the first flavor and kept that business as a side business for 15 years until 2019 when
Oh,
I made
wow.
it full time. So yeah, when you want to talk about an emerging brand, you could say we took the roundabout route to do that. But the benefit of it was I had two different businesses and one was able to support the other. So there was a whole lot of bootstrapping happening, which enabled me to prove out our concepts over time and a lot of transition in that process.
Laura, I appreciate that. And I'm fascinated by business innovation that starts accidentally, if you will. And
Mhm.
so you literally created your granola brand because you wanted to make it for yourself. So what was it who was it really that said, you know what, Laura, you should put this into retail. I would buy it. How did that come about?
So, over the course of about 5 months, I was sharing what I was making, Laura's Gourmet Granola, with friends and family and trainers, physical, my personal trainers, etc. And the feedback was always extremely positive. And
Hmm.
I had an opportunity to start selling it, if you will, at a farmer's market that I did through another company. I did not go to the farmer's market. They were making cookies. And so they took my granola to the farmer's market with them because it was in this makeshift bag. And
Okay.
but because of that, and because there were no cottage laws at the time, I was renting out their kitchen and using it to make the granola. Well, at the same time, because my best friend had said I should think about selling it, I targeted our local specialty retailer here in Arizona, which is called AJ's Fine Foods, as where I would put my product and walked their aisles, looked at the packaging of other companies, looked at the ingredients, etc., and just became a little relentless with each of the store grocery managers about bringing in our product. But the irony was they all were very supportive, but they couldn't do anything without corporate's approval. And
Okay.
I was sending samples into corporate. I was tapping into my inner marketing that I didn't know I had, saying things like, get out of the box and into this bag, whatever I could do to get their attention. And nothing happened. And then one very fortuitous day when I was en route to teach a cooking class, I ran into a grocery store to pick up a missing ingredient. And the owner of that entire family of stores, so it wasn't just AJ's, it was two other brands as well, was there.
Hmm.
And so I just walked up to him. I introduced myself. I told him what I was trying to do. And he said, we support local and I will make a call on your behalf. And 10 days later, I got a call saying they would give us a try. And that was,
Oh
we went
my
on shelf in
goodness.
July 15th, 2004 with one SKU, just one. I didn't even know what a SKU was. One flavor. So
What
yeah,
what an
so that was a minute.
what an amazing story. I mean, so let me dig into, the granola brand, Laura's. What is the brand again? Remind
So
me.
the company is Laura's Gourmet, and Laura's Gourmet Granola is that particular product line.
Okay, okay. Are you also still running the fine dining experiential business?
No, if I did, I wouldn't be married. I was very specifically told by my awesome husband in 2018 that I had to pick a team because as
Okay.
of 2005, I wasn't making the product myself anymore. The granola, I had my sous chef making it, and I hired people, but I also was growing. I mean, over the course of those 14 years before I picked a team and then 15 when it went full time, I had expanded across flavors. So we had 7 more SKUs. And then, in addition to retail in Arizona, we had started distributing outside Arizona and we were
Oh,
doing a
great.
very healthy food service business. So, all of these things had
Oh, so
transpired
more
over
of
those
more of a
15 years.
B2B kind of business,
100%.
if you will.
Yes. Yeah. And
Great.
and every single one of those opportunities happened because someone approached and said, "Can you do this?" And my response was always, "Sure, why can't I?"
Sure.
And sure, exactly. And grateful for every one of those choices and learned enough since then too when I should say, "No, I won't do that," because I've gotten in trouble in the past where I have said yes when I probably should have said no, you know.
Sure.
But that's the learning part. So Celebrated Cuisine, the first company, my private fine dining, I rolled up my knife bag on that in 2018 or 2019, actually, when I took occupancy where we're located currently, because I had to shut down my commercial licenses for doing those types of events and the kitchen
Okay.
specific for that. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, I had a whole lot of storefronts.
So I know it was a very personal impetus to pick a lane, if you will, but but I'm sure you had revenue coming in from Laura's Fine Dining. What
We did,
what
yes.
made your decision to pick the lane you're in now rather than sticking with the original business that you founded?
A few things came into play as to why picking the team turned into picking Laura's Gourmet. The
Okay.
first one was, well, both by a mentor I had at the time and my husband and a few other people. The lane there was the opportunity for passive income, right? The ability to make money without you being physically on site and doing something. So my chef
That makes a lot
company,
of sense.
I had to be there. I was the one performing in the kitchen and then tableside or at these large events, and I was extremely hands-on. I didn't run a huge catering company. We didn't even call ourselves caterer. We were private chefs, and it was very customized. So nights and weekends absent at the same time as Monday through Friday, building granola, branding, the whole 9 yards, it became all consuming. So
Okay.
that was number one, was the idea that I wouldn't have to be present and accounted for every single moment, that there were things that I could offload. Number two was really the opportunity to see where the brand could really go, because it was always in second position to my chef company. And the time that I was putting into it was the extra time that I had to put into it, not the focused time that I could put into it.
Interesting.
And number three was to see if I could expand beyond granola because I did not want to become pigeonholed as granola girl when I'm Chef Laura, which is a total ego sounding thing, but it plays into the differentiation for our product lines and the brand. We are a chef driven brand, and that does mean something in terms of the ingredients we use and how we combine them and present them to the consumer or to chefs.
Laura, what I really appreciate and what I hope our podcast audience can possibly learn from here is that you made that decision on which business to run with from a very data and business focus, not an emotional one. Right? You picked a business that was going to have more room to grow and one that, as in your words, could produce a more of a passive income. You didn't have to be the physical face of the brand in every event you went to. You don't have to physically make every batch of
Right.
granola.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I know that's tough for small and mid-sized businesses. Whatever the business is we're as business leaders, we're emotionally connected to our business.
Yes.
But making decisions based on more facts and data is much more beneficial in the long run. And I think that's a great lesson to hear.
Well, you bring up a really, really good point, Rob, and that is there's still emotion involved, right? These are all my babies, and I
Of
want to nurture
course.
them and make them grow. But in the world of scalability, which I have since
Right.
redefined from 2019, okay, Celebrated Cuisine, my first company, could not be scalable. There was just no way because it was predicated on me. And
Right.
so that just wasn't a possibility. And I didn't want to be 70 years old and standing in the kitchen. My body wouldn't be able to take it and I'd be miserable. Um, and I didn't want that. On the flip side, though, what I gave up were a lot of really great experiences with these clients that I had over the years and being part of big moments in their lives. And so letting go of that emotional attachment was a process. And the gift was so many of those clients have remained really good friends, big supporters of Laura's Gourmet,
Oh, I'm
investors,
sure.
some of them,
Oh,
because, when you do an investment, right, you're investing in the people just as much as you are in the product, right? You have to believe in both. So that has
yes.
been very, very key. But at the same time, the emotional thing has shown up at Laura's Gourmet for me because I was getting very, like I said, I didn't want to be pigeonholed as granola girl. And so to find and create other products that would reposition me in other people's eyes, not that it should be important, but it is, as Chef Laura and not just I make great granola, right? I needed to have that is a very strong part of who I am, right? Putting on a
Sure.
chef coat is like putting on a superhero cape. You just have this, persona that you become. And I am never going to be ready to let that part go. That just is it's who I am. It's in my blood. So yeah, hopefully that made sense.
But you found a way to maintain that emotional connection through a very different avenue and through a very professional approach.
And on top of that, looking ahead, and I had no idea what things would be like now in 2026, right? And I feel like a
Sure.
survivor because of what businesses my size keep getting assaulted with. But when you look at where we are now and what an influence AI has in so many areas, I feel that having the emotional connection and attachment and all the other things is a very big positive because it makes us real and it makes
Mhm.
us connectable with our audience, whether it's one of our food products, whether it's Countercool, that our workspace solution. People, they when they review us, they use words like love repeatedly or can't do without, things like that. That shows that we have touched them emotionally, and that's where it's very positive to integrate emotion into your business plan.
Awesome. I love that. So, as you were starting, and please pick a different time period in your business career when I ask this question, but clearly there's been times in your career when you've had to navigate, down cycles of revenue.
Mhm.
And please talk to our audience about how you navigated the business, not only from an operations side, but also from your team members and any employees you may have had in those periods of either down cycle or maybe it was when you starting Laura's granola from zero. So pick a time when revenue was stressed.
So for Laura's Gourmet, so Celebrated Cuisine, my first company, I was very fortunate. Our focus was on the upper end of the market. And
Hmm.
so when there were downturns in financial, '07, '08, whatever, my clientele were
Hmm.
not impacted by that. And as a result, I was not impacted by that. I was very, very fortunate. In addition to
Okay.
that, I've always had a multi-pronged approach to revenue in my businesses. So I don't rely on just one thing that's going to keep the lights on. And that
Not
doesn't
just
have
one
to
revenue
be
stream.
right. And it doesn't just have to, it's not about how many products it is, but how you sell those products. So for Celebrated Cuisine, it was events, but I also taught cooking classes And I was doing granola, which was still under the celebrated cuisine umbrella at the time, in the very beginning.
Okay.
So I had three lines of revenue. At any particular moment, one of them would shine, and the other two, like
Hmm.
in the summer in Arizona, nobody's doing an event. You're melting. That's what you're doing. So that side of my business would be completely flat. As a matter of fact, you learn to be a squirrel in the wintertime and hide all your financial nuts so that you can make it through the summer and pay rent. With
Sure.
Laura's Gourmet, again, it wasn't just about Laura's Gourmet granola to retail. Became Laura's Gourmet to food service. And
Mhm.
then when we rolled into 2020, more than 65 or 70% of my business was food service, not retail. We weren't nationally distributed as yet outside of a couple of independents and some really nice specialty small regional chains. So when the pandemic happened, 70% of my business disappeared overnight.
Mm.
And interesting about that was the employees I had, a couple of them rolled off just naturally because they just wanted to be home with their families. They didn't even ask for any kind of package. They just said, not that I was able to do anything, but also the employees that stayed, everybody reswizzled. And brand ambassadors became baggers for retail and assisting in our facility. And I mean, so everybody kind of just, I was doing it too. We all changed our seats on the bus, and we did it as a very flat organization. And I think it was
Okay.
positive because I was in the trenches with them because there was nowhere else to be in that mode.
Sure.
So what
Sure.
that taught me too was that I could not just be predicated on this food service as the main revenue generator when we had small retail, and nobody was really loving going to the grocery store. And we had a website, but it wasn't phenomenal. And so that
Hmm.
really pushed me to find somebody who could really redo what our website at the time looked like. It's two iterations later now. And build out something that could become a revenue sustaining and profitable model. So that became the foundation for doing that, and then pushed me into learning more about what national retail could look like in distribution and a lot of the
Interesting.
subsequent hard lessons that came with that in the first year or so. But it was a matter of, I mean, we all have heard the word pivot, right? It was a pivot fest. It really was.
Yes.
And I mean, I was very fortunate where, I had money saved, so there were things that got us through it. And what was exciting is that after a very bad 2020, in the middle of 21, all of a sudden the phone started ringing and the PO
Mm.
started, everything started hitting again in food service. And at this point, we had remodeled or reswizzled what direct to consumer could look like. And so we started having more balance adjacency because there are still obvious winners and we're still reformulating things, but it saved us. It really saved our granola bacon.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So tell us about the business today, right? Obviously, you're clearly more than just one granola SKU. So tell us what makes up Laura's Gourmet or Laura's Gourmet granola today.
Okay. Well, I'll start with Laura's Gourmet Granola. So Laura's Gourmet Granola currently has 10 different SKUs or varieties in food service. We have 9 in retail. The distinction
Mhm.
is that one of our food service flavors is very similar to a different one, minus one ingredient, but not enough to create differentiation on the retail shelf. So I didn't feel it was appropriate to crowd out the retail shelf with too much similarity.
Okay.
Um, we also released last year granola clusters. So
Oh, sure.
our granola is a classic granola. It is not meant to be chunky. It is crunchy, but it's meant to be, you can spoon it and sprinkle and think of it as a classic cereal. Our clusters are exactly that. They're clusters. And what I love about what we did with our clusters is the ingredient that I found to create the cluster is actually fiber. And I was ahead of the
Hmm.
curve because now it's all about conversations around fiber, but one serving of 8 ounce, excuse me, one ounce serving of our clusters gives you an excellent source of fiber. You get 5 or 6 grams in that one couple bites, which is amazing without having a detrimental impact on flavor and texture and mouthfeel, which is what we live for. So we have 5 different granola cluster SKUs. One of those is for the holidays only. And then about a year and a half ago, I started doing savory toppers that you could almost think are savory granola because it does have oats in it. but it also has quinoa and millet and flaxseed and a lot of high performing superfoods, ancient grains. And each of them is inspired from a different part of the world in terms of,
Mm.
Asia or Southwest of the US. And they're meant to be sprinkled over salads or soups or grain bowls or your cottage cheese or what have you, just a simple sprinkle. Um, so that product is doing very well in food service. I made a mistake on the retail side of that. So learning curve for Laura, which was our packaging. It is when I created the product, I spoke with a very good friend of mine, and he was in retail, and he's extraordinary. And he said, "Where does this go in the grocery store?" And that's when I realized I created a new category because it's not just a topper. There are
Mm.
toppers that you find in the salad section, but this topper can go on roasted vegetables. It can go on, you can use it to crust meat. You can do a variety of things with it. So I'm going through a process now of what could the packaging look like? More importantly, where does it go in the store? So that has been an interesting process for me. So now we have Laura's Gourmet granola snacking clusters over the top, which is our signature savory toppers. And then last June, after several years of product development, we released a product called Countercool. And Countercool sits on your countertop. It's a speed rack. If you think of a commercial kitchen where you put all your sheet trays when you're baking or cooking, I created one to fit a half-size sheet tray that sits on your countertop and supports 5 trays or
Huh.
10 quarter sheets, but you can collapse it in seconds. It does not require a manual or anything. You just literally collapse it. It weighs under 5 pounds. It's very portable. It's stowable. It's extremely efficient. And now we have accessories coming out for that. So you can stack them and have a mobile speed rack for under 10 pounds. Fits in your car, it literally can fit under your seat. So anyway, we're doing a lot with that, especially in the private chef world.
Wow, necessity is definitely the mother of invention for you, Laura.
Yes, it's funny. We were at a trade show. This was in July last year in 2025. And my husband, I pulled him into booth duty with me because he wasn't paying attention when I asked him a question. And next thing he knew, he was on his way. And and repeatedly, people would show up at the booth, and these are all chefs, professional chefs, and they'd say, "Oh my God, this is amazing. It's so obvious. I can't believe I didn't create this." And he would respond with, "If you had, would you have done anything with it?" And they all look at him like, "Oh my God," because it takes a lot. I mean, this took a lot. And it was a lot of product development, working with engineering, product design, finding manufacturers, getting the right price point, et cetera, patents, trademarks, the whole 9 yards. And I'm super proud of this product. And it is the number one product we make now that brings me right back into my chef shoes and connects me with my original audience and creates a conversation with these private chefs and caterers who are like, "This has changed what I do." And that is exciting for me. That actually gives me chills.
Yes. So it
So,
sounds like it's a product that's not only good for the for the home chef, like someone like my wife, who's an
mhm,
excellent cook and loves to outfit her kitchen with, things that make her job go easier rather than
mhm,
just me, her husband, washing the dishes.
right?
But also it sounds like it's a great product for the smaller caterer who can collapse it and take it, on the job, if you
Small or large.
will. Okay.
There's a huge network of private chefs who are one or two or three in a small regional group.
Yeah.
Culinary instructors also love having this because it sits tableside and it's very easy to do their instruction and have all of what we call mise en place, their prep right in front of them. We've seen a lot of universities take this on for their larger catering because they're driving all over campus and you never know what the room is that you're doing an event. When you don't
Great
know
point.
that kind of thing, right? The same thing for any kind of a trade show, because every trade show where there's organization and food involved, you need to have places to put things and you only get, 10 by 10 or 10 by 15 square feet.
Right.
So that makes a difference. I have someone who she reached out. She bought one to organize all of her artwork, everything she does for her art and jewelry making. Each tray is a different thing for her. So it's whatever you create for it. But to see the creativity and where people put this, I originally had the home cook in mind as the number one benefactor of this, and I was blown away by how much the professional was like, I need this, I need this, I need this, right? And
Interesting.
yeah, so we're grateful for that.
So a non-food product that you invented and patented and are now producing, where would this be available?
Currently, great question. Currently, Countercool is available on our website, which is laurasgourmet.com. We have B2B wholesale access. So if someone is a business and they want to get different pricing than a consumer, they can apply for that. Um, we also have a couple of regional distributors who are able to sell this in the states that they're in. And we are in conversation with a couple of larger distribution partners about having that available. And it's all online, right? Everything would be online. We have a couple of places, like small cooking stores, that have bought
Hmm.
them to sell in their locations as well. So they'll buy, 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever the case is. But
Yeah.
right now, all business drives back to laurasgourmet.com.
Okay. Sounds like a great product for online retail.
It's a perfect product. The way we created the manufacturing of it, the product is delivered to us already in the box. We just need to put a label on it.
Wonderful.
And obviously samples of everything else. But it obviously we don't manufacture it ourselves. So
Understood.
we did choose we do manufacture in Vietnam. So and I'm happy to share that because they've been an excellent partner to us, tariffs notwithstanding.
I've actually been to Vietnam visiting manufacturers in my former life, and it's an amazing place to get products designed and manufactured.
Which is great because we have 2 accessory products coming soon for Countercool, in addition to the clips that we call Cool Connect, which allow you to stack one on top of the other. So it's
Oh, yeah.
it's becoming its own product line, which is really, really cool to see. So
So besides Countercool and the granola products, are there any other products that make up Laura's Gourmet today?
Not available on shelf or in food service currently, but I do have 4 salad dressing formulations that I would love to bring to market. So I've been navigating that process. All 4 dressings have been quote unquote commercialized, so I know we can make them in high production without losing
Okay.
the I just made this in my kitchen flavor and feel and everything. So that is definitely on the horizon. Additional ways of doing over the top. I have some additional
Oh.
flavor profiles in mind for making that. So that's part of it. We have a few additional granolas, and we're going to be making. I have another cluster that we're going through testing on right now. So right now, that's where everything stands. I really feel like I'm at a place where, okay, we need liftoff on everything across the board, or decide where we don't have liftoff, and then make some hard decisions because you can't make all products all the time, especially as you grow, and then see where it goes. So yeah, there's a lot more out there, I'm sure.
And is your current revenue profile still mostly commercial sales, or is it more evenly split between commercial and retail?
So we actually now are we for so it, how do we I always look at it between food service, direct to consumer, and brick and mortar retail. That's kind of
Hmm.
the breakouts I look at. So our food service is still about 60% of our business.
Okay.
Actually, maybe about 50% now because our direct to consumer has grown rapidly over the last year. We made some significant enhancements to our website, and last year was very much a rebuilding year for our brand refresh, our marketing focus. A lot went down last year, a whole lot. And all of it was done with the intention of much more rapid growth starting now. And we're starting to see that. So our website has moved into about a 20% of overall revenue position, which is double what it was this time last year, with about,
Outstanding.
I'd say probably another 15% opportunity this calendar year alone, based on some of the things we're putting into place. And then our food service continues to grow, and our reach in retail. We are in the process of opening, we just opened our third DC with a specific distributor. We're opening our fourth DC with them. And then we're working on a very large opportunity, which would make two more distribution centers open up. And so with the same distributor. So there's just been a lot of transition and a lot of opportunity. So maybe the percentages will stay the same in terms of how it's split, but the overall number is bigger. So I probably should go back and get
Sure.
my calculator out.
That's all right. But the good news is there is a nice kind of a relatively even split between the three channels of revenue for you. You
Yes.
don't have 90% of your sales in any one channel, which is a major
No.
problem.
No, God, no. And I really
Yeah.
want to point out too, none of this would be possible or would be happening if I hadn't hired my chief operating officer back in 2023, because
Mm,
up until that point, I was doing all of it, right? And talk about having two different businesses and trying to run two different businesses. Then you're running one business, but you're trying to grow the business, but you have to do
right.
the everyday operational. And by virtue of bringing her on, that opened my proverbial plate up so that I could start building new products and creating new lines of revenue, et cetera. But there is not a day that goes by that I don't look at our numbers. I don't look at our P&L. I don't look at our sales by customer summary. I don't do comparisons to the previous quarter and the previous year, because when I worked in tech, the saying was, you're only as good as your last month. And so I take that to heart in every single day. Yeah, so I'm a good time.
So it sounds like you're well positioned for growth in the near future. So let's talk about that, right? What does the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe that's too long of outward looking forecast for you, but what does that period look like for you?
So I would say let's look at that from the next year and a half to 3 years.
Sure, that's fine.
And the reason for that is I have an exit strategy, and that exit strategy is really more around me being more the face of the brand and product development and less around even some of the day-to-day that I'm still involved in, and et cetera. And I
Okay.
envision part of that happening because of being maybe transitioned into a brand portfolio of some kind, where a lot of that comes off my plate and I can focus on what I really do best. Um, so, like I said, last year was very much of a building year. We did our first friends and family round, which supported and still supports, we still have funds left, everything that was around the brand. It was not about infrastructure. It wasn't about the day-to-day operations. It wasn't about payroll. It was specifically around the brand refresh, the helping people understand the culinary end of what we're doing, not just granola, not just, bringing it all together and putting the right people into place. So now we are embarking on our next round, which could probably fall under family office slash angel investor slash maybe friends and family if someone wanted to step up, right? But I have a number we know what the number is. And the intention there is to put what my marketing director calls, we need to put gasoline on the fire. We have proven
Yeah.
out online and in store what we can do with the funding we have. But it's not enough because there's ad spend, a lot, there is in-store marketing, there are promos, there's whatever. And so we have seen, and I don't want to get too technical, but you live and die by ROAS, and we have seen if we put a little bit of cash into there, we get that much more business out of it. And our numbers
Right.
are
Right.
good. So we know that the model proves. And when I talked about scalability earlier in this conversation and how
Hmm.
it was redefined for me twice now, once was, you can't scale a private chef business with one person. And in scalability, when I first moved to our current location, was how much granola can you make in a given day? It's so much more than that. It's how much can you, I mean, how much can you manage as a brand and stay true to your roots and what you're about? And so for us, it's been about finding some of the partners that we need to help support that growth as well, so that if we do get hit with that big PO, it's not a big deal for fulfillment, right? So
Right.
there's been a lot along the way that I've learned, some a little bit harder learnings than others, but I do see our brand being at least triple what it is in revenue within about 18 months. And I think that really will come from just the brand awareness that we'll create with the way we're positioning how funding would operate for us, if that makes sense.
Awesome. So really a at the long end, a 3-year plan to grow and then ultimately monetize the business or transfer it to different ownership so you can take a very different role with the organization, or maybe just as a founder role, if you will, an X an X
I,
role,
I don't even know
whatever
what
that
that
may look
is. I
like
don't
in
know.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the thing I know is that the part of my chefness that I love and appreciate is my desire to educate and doing cooking classes and sharing with people how they can eat. And especially in this world where there's so much you can buy in a package that is to do the things you can do with real food, right? And I want to be able to continue on that trend, and I feel like we're doing it anyway because we do a lot of recipes that we share. But I just feel like there's an opportunity to really have Laura's Gourmet be a very integral part of any kitchen in how you eat your breakfast, how you eat your salads, your dinner, how you cook, how you bake, and what we can do for professional chefs to ease up their quality control, quality assurance, and everything else. And I don't see that ending, no matter how we're transitioned as a company. I'll still be part of that as 100%.
So Laura, what would be holding you back from achieving those pretty grandiose growth goals?
Just money. That's it. I need some cash. I can't say it any other way. Last year, I just said this the other day, and maybe this is where you want to cut me off for the conversation. But last year, when we finished the raise, for the first time in a really long time, I was able to say yes to a lot of things that I knew would benefit the company. And I'm at the end of that raise of those funds, and starting the next one. And I'm saying not yet right now. And I don't want to say not yet because that just slows everything down. When I know that if I could just say yes, because I can afford it, right? Or can invest in that, because it's all investment, then we would see that next level of growth that I'm talking about. That's the only
Okay.
thing that's holding us back.
Is a capital constraint.
Is capital. Yep, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I never knew it as well as I've known it in the last 18 months now to really understand it, So
Well, Laura Briscoe, I would not bet against you in achieving those growth goals. This has been a fantastic conversation, a really interesting story about building one business. I know you use the word pivot, but pivoting away from it and starting something completely new and really driving it. Um, uh, Chef Laura Briscoe, thank you so much for joining us on the Think Small podcast. Again, Laura's Gourmet Granola. And I'm sorry, what's the
and
raccoon
Countercool.
product? And
Countercool.
Countercool, absolutely.
Yes.
Countercool, love it.
Yeah.
I'll
So
be getting a Countercool for my wife soon.
I think she'll be very happy. It'll be the gift of the year for her. It's the gift that
Oh, I
keeps
hope
on
so.
giving.
I love it. To me, I get to eat her wonderful food.
See?
Well, Laura Briscoe, thank you so much for joining us today on the Think Small podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?